All right, it's the Pete Souza Show presented by Slovakics. We are now in Morgantown, West Virginia, on the cusp of TCU and West Virginia to be played tomorrow. Going over to meet with Rich Rodriguez and the West Virginia coaches here in a little bit. And then before that, though, we're talking to Babe Laufenberg. That's coming up in about 10, 15 minutes. We're going to start off talking to Greg Cote, who is a longtime writer for the Miami Herald, has the Greg Cote Show, amazing columnist. And I want to get his take on this sports gambling stuff in the NBA. Quickly, before we get to Greg, just some thoughts from myself. Of course, the Pete Souza Show is presented by Slovakics. One thing that came to mind yesterday as more and more of this news about this NBA gambling scandal broke, when the feds say this is the tip of the iceberg, that probably is the tip of the iceberg for their investigation, right? As far as evidence is concerned. I think for the NBA and for pro sports in general, this could be the tip of the iceberg. And here's my point quickly. And again, all I can do is base my points and perspective really on experience. My opinions are never great, but when they're based on experience, they're at least you can at least digest them. They're at least palatable. When I was a young man, and I had a lot going on in my life. I mean, you guys know, sober for almost 14 years next week or next November 7th, which is awesome, right? But it was a lot of years of ugliness before that. And during that ugliness, I was doing public relations for the Charlotte Hornets and the Philadelphia 76ers. When I tell you I was privy to boatloads of inside information, I mean, I was. Now, I wasn't making a lot of money either. But to actually take that information, right, and to parlay that into loads of cash just took so many steps. Scotty, you're up right now, by the way.
I got Greg whenever you're ready.
Okay, 1 second. Just let me finish this thought. So, Greg, we'll get with you in 1 second. So, it was tough to actually take like these ideas, maybe that Emeka Okafor wasn't going to play, right, in a game, or that Andre Iguodala wasn't going to play, or Sam Dallenberg wasn't going to play. If I had that information, there wasn't. I would have to tell a bookie, who would have to tell somebody else. It was like a whole gross paper trail, right? Just a huge pain in the ass, a lot of heavy lifting to get this stuff done. So you're like, you know what? Forget it. Nowadays with illegal gambling, right? It it is really it's a green light per se to so much nefarious behavior, right? Um, that all I got to do is pull up my phone. Like if I know Emeka Okafor is not going to play, I can tell a friend of mine in Florida that he's not going to play and to bet $500 on FanDuel, and maybe we each split $250. Now that's Mickey Mouse stuff, but imagine someone with more to gain, right? Probably more to lose. Now, eventually, I think everybody's going to get caught, right? That's why they talk about the mob. Like it's more about the lifestyle and living the life than it really is like any kind of longevity. That was one of the things I was most shocked about is that the mob is still in existence. But uh, the legalization of sports gambling, I'm not saying it's going to be the end of existence or pro sports, but it's just so easy to take this information and to put it in play now. It's a scary time, but it's not scary for us on the Pete Souza Show because we get to bring in longtime Miami Herald columnist on the phone, Greg Cote. He's got the Greg Cote Show. You know him, you've seen him, you love him. What's happening, Greg? Show, by the way. I was watching it last night, getting ready for this, and it's a fun show to watch. I mean, along with being an accomplished writer and such a terrific columnist, the Greg Cote Show is pretty good. Greg, you there?
I am here. Thank you. I appreciate
Hey,
that.
there he is. Hey, no, it's the truth, and I've been a longtime fan of yours, and that brings me to my first question out of the gate this morning. What is the column that you would write this morning? At least give us some of at least the crux and the most compelling points around this NBA gambling situation. What moves you about this story that you would want to share with readers?
If I were to localize it, as I probably would, I would write it from a Miami Heat angle rather than a national perspective, at least initially. And that would be they're happy to get rid of Terry Rozier under any circumstances. He's been dead wood on this team. for a couple of years. He's fallen out of the rotation. He's an aging, overpaid player who they've been trying to get rid of and trying to trade. And so he's the least of their problems. And, it's also, I think they're allowed to say it's not really our problem, being the Heat problem, because what Rozier allegedly did happened when he was with the Charlotte Hornets. So the Heat have sort of just inherited this mess. But obviously, from a national perspective, if you're Adam Silver, your main headline is, wow, a head coach is involved in this, not just a guy on the end of the bench, but a head coach. And so the NBA has a massive problem right now, and you have to figure that this is a tip of the iceberg type stuff. That story hasn't ended.
Well, you say tip of the iceberg, like that's my question. Like, I was just talking before you came online about the legalization of sports gambling, and just, I used to be a PR guy for the Sixers and for the Hornets, and I was privy to so much information. But in order for me to actually
Yeah.
put that in play and make some money off it, it would have been a huge pain in the ass, right? I would have had to like
Yeah.
literally go visit with like super shady figures. Now people can pull up their phone or send a message to somebody far away. Eventually, I think everybody's going to get caught if the numbers get big enough. But it certainly is a broken system, I guess I would say. How do you think the NBA moves forward, and most of pro sports leagues do, maintaining the integrity, but also keeping the legalization of sports gambling and this money train going?
Yeah, I don't know how they do that, but it is a big mess because, obviously, if you're the NFL or any major league, you're afraid to say it, but you love gambling, because gambling is why people are still watching a game that has a 12-point spread with a minute and a half left, because they bet on the under on 12 and a half. So gambling is a big reason why it draws ratings, right? And it was a few years ago, gradually over time, all of these leagues, there used to be a strict wall between these pro sports and gambling, and the wall has crumbled. And now you see big entities like DraftKings and FanDuel, sponsoring leagues, and all of a sudden the leagues are in bed with gambling in a lot of different ways to a lot of different levels. And I think this is a byproduct of that. I really do. And it's, what involved Terry Rozier was a guy he knew who cozied up to him, a professional gambler, is betting on 30 different unders on prop bets. And the game that he placed those 30 bets on, Rozier mysteriously, leaves the game after 9 minutes and hits on every one of those 30 unders. So that's either the world's biggest coincidence or it's incriminating.
Yourself covering sports in Miami for as long as you have, what's the biggest gambling scandal you've ever been around or had the opportunity, or I guess responsibility, of covering prior to this?
Yeah, this could be it. And Rozier has been involved in this for a couple of years, but this is the first time he's actually been arrested. I guess this is it. I can't think of a lot of it. There have been peripheral things, but this directly hits the team, even though, as I say, this happened when he was a Charlotte player, so it doesn't really implicate the Heat. Just like the thing involving LeBron James now, LeBron isn't implicated. It's just somebody else connected to his team that had privy information to whether or not he's going to play that night, and so have it. So, yeah, I think this would probably be it.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly should be. I can't remember the last time, like literally, I never thought, again, you'd hear stuff in the 80s and 70s about the mob being involved. And I guess in this situation, it's more with the poker games. But the fact that the tentacles are involved in touching a pro sports league through a head coach is about as dramatic as it comes. How do you think the NBA moves forward with this thing spinning out, having involved a head coach in the league? Because you started it by saying earlier, that to me is something that is just amazing. I was overwhelmed by a head coach being involved. And now it's possible that it wasn't just the poker stuff. Maybe he was giving injury information to someone.
Yeah, I think when you reach the head coach level, it's a whole different ball game because you expect it to be the Terry Rozier level, right? You expect it to be, the bit player, the guy at the end of the bench, not the prominent figure. And so if it's a superstar player or if it's a head coach, that's a whole different level. And right now, it's out of the NBA's hands, right? Adam, I mean, the FBI is investigating this, so this is their business now. And all Adam Silver can do is wait to see what the next dominoes to fall are. The NBA can conduct its own separate investigation, but this is an FBI matter now. So, I can only imagine that we've not seen the end, but just the beginning of the story. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this doesn't scandalize the entire NBA and really eat at the integrity of the game because I sort of do trust Adam Silver and him trying to represent that hey, this is not a corrupt league. This is just one incident, but we'll see.
Last question. Do you think the NBA dropped the ball with the Terry Rozier investigation? They pretty much say, okay, go ahead, go back and play. And then, I mean, obviously the FBI has more resources and clearly more motivation and evidence now. But do you think the NBA sort of missed the ball there?
Yeah, I have to say yes. I think the NBA has a vested interest that the FBI does not have. The NBA, it's to their benefit for this to just go away. For them to say, yeah, we investigated, we didn't find anything else there. Let's move on. Let's forget about it. Let's not even talk about it. The NBA, that's to their advantage. The FBI, it's to their advantage to uncover this as deeply as they can. And when it spreads to the mafia and to poker and all of that, you can tell that this is a massive investigation that's far-reaching, and that the NBA is just a part of it.
Greg Cote, I'll let you get back to it, man. And I encourage people to check out the Greg Cote Show. Of course, everybody's familiar with your work with the Miami Herald as a columnist. Thanks so much, man. It's really cool to catch up with you, somebody who I've read and looked up to for a long time.
I really appreciate that, Pete, and anytime for you.
You got it. Thanks so much, Greg. All right, there he goes, legendary columnist Greg Cote. By the way, Scotty, that was a great graphic. Thank you so much for doing that. That was kick-ass work. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back with Babe Laufenberg. We're talking to Babe about the Cowboys. They're taking on the Denver Broncos this weekend. Babe's about to take off for Denver. And we talked to him. I want to know a little bit about his roots. He came up through Indiana football playing for Lee Corso. Let's find out, by the way, if Indiana's a football school now. Babe will tell us. He played for the Hoosiers. And, of course, the Cowboys' colorful career, colorful guy. We're back with that after the break. The Pete Souza Show is presented by Slovakics.